Hi friends, good morning. So it's a little after 8 o'clock in the morning right now on August 4th, and I am heading to my local Target store to go and pick up my copy of Midnight Sun because it is release day and I am trash. And I plan on reading this out of this book. My younger adult self really enjoyed the Twilight series. I did not come on to the Twilight series till I was like 19, almost 20. So I was reading this as an adult and could acknowledge that it had problems. It's not a perfect book, but man, it's entertaining. And when Midnight Sun originally got leaked and Stephanie Meyer stopped working on it and put it on her website, I did read the document that she had done. And I just remember really enjoying the narrative she was giving Edward, the back and forth he was having in his own head about the whole situation. So I really want to go pick up my copy and get the full reading experience. That's what this vlog is going to be, obviously, from the title, is my reactions, honest to goodness, about Midnight Sun. I thought about getting this for my Kindle so I could just start it at midnight when it came out, or 10 o'clock my time. But I opted to just have the physical copy. I still have all my physical copies of the original series. There's a longer, grander story here about my reading experience of Twilight. So I'm going to explain that later in this video. I'll leave a timestamp down below for if you want my full Twilight story. But yeah, I want to go pick this up. I also want to go get me my big morning caffeine moment and some breakfast. So that's what I'm going to do now. You'll probably see little glimpses in Target because, you know, they're funny about filming sometimes. Sometimes they're not. I'm not going to make a big production of it out in there, but you'll probably see me in the aisle at least picking up the book. That kind of a situation. So I will chat with you once it's actually in my hands. Okay, so first things first, I officially have it in my hands. Yay! Now, instead of pretty B-roll, you're going to get a story. Because I went to go pick it up at Target this morning. And for some reason, I feel like they changed the days where they do the elderly hour. And that happened to be today. I'm like, of all days, really? So me and 5 other people were waiting in the parking lot. So 9 o'clock comes, we go in. They don't even have the books out on the shelf yet. I'm like, y'all have been open for an hour. How is this not on your shelf yet? So the dude had to get in the back and get it out of a box. And then I just ended up talking to the other guy who was sitting there waiting for me with the book. And the other people are like, we've got other shopping, we'll be back. And so, yeah, anyways, that's my quick story time on actually picking up the book. But from here, I do have another errand I need to run while I'm out this morning. So I'm going to go do that. Then I'm going to go home and I'm actually going to shower and get ready. I mean, I took a bath last night, so I'm not gross or anything, but my hair needs to be washed. It's greasy, it's gross, it's time. So I'm gonna go home, take care of all of that, run my last errand, and then we will dig into reading this book, Instagramming about this book, the whole 9 yards. Okay, friends, so I'm settled. I've cleaned off my desk, cleaned off my little area here so it's not a giant mess as I vlog, because I think I'm just going to sit at my desk and really focus on this. I've got my handy dandy bookmark. I got these as a gift from my husband for Christmas last year. They're really pretty, like, feather metal bookmarks, and I really like them, and my cats like the tassels. So I've got that. I've got my drink. I have easy access to the kitchen. And I'm going to start Midnight Sun. So before I dive in, I'm going to quickly kind of tell my Twilight story. So when it comes to Twilight, when I first read it, it had been a while since I'd read anything. Right after high school, I really didn't read too much. I was too focused on getting time with my friends before I started cosmetology school and working. And then when I was in cosmetology school, I was at school 8:30 to 5 every day. And then I would go straight to work most days and work from like 6 to 10, maybe 11, sometimes later on the weekend, then squeeze in as much social time as I could. So I didn't really dedicate any time to reading in that period of my life. So, and that lasted until I was like 19, 20. I had just transferred to the second salon I ever worked in. One of the girls I grew up with was working there, and she had Twilight out. She's like, have you read this? Have you heard about it? I'm like, no. And so I checked with my aunts who are school teachers. I'm like, hey, have you guys read this? Is it any good? They're like, yes, read it. And so I read it, and I fell in love with reading again. And it was so fantastic, because then I went on this binge, finding a bunch of different books. Let's see, this would have been 2006 when I was deep diving all of this. Yeah, like 2005 to 2006, in that kind of realm. And I had the best time reading them. And they were just really fun. I remember when Breaking Dawn came out. It actually came out on my birthday that year. And I was on a getaway with my husband at the time, not Steve, my previous husband. And we were in a place called Logan, Utah. It's a couple of hours from where I live. It's in the northern part of Utah. But in the summertime, it's absolutely beautiful. Sandwiched right in between the mountains, stays nice and cool. And we just wanted to get away. And the room that we rented, the AC was broken. And so we went to Walmart like at 11:30 at night to pick up a fan just so we could get through the night. We were only in that room for one night because the other room that we wanted didn't have the first night we were going to be there available. So we were in that room just for the night. So while we were there, they had big like pallets full of Breaking Dawn. Because Stephanie Meyer went to college in Utah at Brigham Young University in Provo. And so the books did really well here in Utah where I live. It was like, 11:50 or something. And so I asked my husband, I'm like, hey, do you mind if we wait 10 minutes so I can get a copy? He's like, no, that's fine. And so we waited. I got my copy. We went back to the hotel room. And I wasn't tired. The room was hot. I'm like, I'm going to stay up and read for a little bit. You can go to sleep if you want. He's like, all right. And so I sat there and I read till like 4 a.m. I didn't finish it because I was just trying to savor it, even though I just wanted to binge it so hard. And that was truly the first time in a long time I felt like a reader. And it was one of the few instances, and I think it's because it was my birthday, where he didn't flinch at me wanting to read. We went out and did things, and when we were back in the room, I'm just like, hey, I'm going to read my book. Is that okay? And he's like, yeah, fine, whatever. And he would just watch whatever he wanted on TV while I was reading, and it ended up being a really great weekend for me, and I really enjoyed it. And I just, like I said, I had the best time with it. Twilight will always hold kind of a special place in my heart because it helped reinvigorate my reading, and it did change the kind of YA fiction that we were getting. I mean, most of my growing up, we had things like Fear Street and Sweet Valley High, and that was kind of it for the YA demographic. And, you'd get random other stories, but Twilight changed YA. If people can't realize that, I think they're too young. You know, I was an adult as the Twilight series was coming out, but I saw how it changed the kind of fiction that was coming out for teenagers, and I have to admire that. I have to admire Stephenie Meyer for that. And then, I already said, but I remember when this was leaked, and I'm like so sad because I wasn't going to get the physical book. Because she even said, she's like, I don't know if I'll ever come back to this project, so here it is, as it is. Just know that this is unedited, and it's just the rough manuscript. And, you know, there were typos and things in it, but she, you know, she gave it to the fans because they so desperately wanted it that they hacked into her computer and got it. So, yes, I am really excited to dive into this book, but I felt like in this video I had to explain. I have read Life and Death, the kind of gender-swapped version for the 10th anniversary edition. I do have that on this channel, so I will leave that linked for you guys to check out. And I'm not going to deny that this series has problems. Like, it does. And we can look at it in hindsight and see all the problems. You can look at it as a dark romance and acknowledge the problems. And that's more what I do, is I acknowledge that Twilight is a darker romance. You can't expect a vampire to behave like a human. And, you know, so it's a paranormal, darker romance. And so that's what I'm going in here, and I'm going to finally get all of Edward's perspective. I don't know how long I'm going to take to read this, but I know that today I'm going to be, like, basically dedicated to reading the whole thing. So I'm going to read as much as I can today and go from there. Okay, this, like, dedication in the beginning is so sweet, and it feels so real to me, and I really want to see how her writing has evolved and changed over the years, and I'm just genuinely excited. Okay, so I've officially read the first chapter of Midnight Sun now, and coming back into Meyer's writing after so long of not reading from her, it almost feels like coming home to me. Her writing just feels so nostalgic, it's not even funny. Like, I'm just really enjoying the narrative from Edward's perspective. It gives a lot more information, especially about their initial meeting in the classroom, how he was trying to restrain himself and how her behaviors affected how he was feeling. And I'm really excited to see more of the true Cullen family dynamic. I think that's what I'm most looking forward to. And that's something I'm going to be seeing in the next little bit here. So all the mental telepathy going on is already really fun, and I'm really enjoying that. And so I'm really excited to see how things continue and how them all living in the same house affects the story and the kind of perspectives we're going to get. And so I'm really excited. Like, it's fun so far. Like I say, it's just this huge nostalgia trip for me. Okay, so I've made some more progress here. I am up to chapter 4, which is about 75 pages in now. And I have really been enjoying it. Getting Edward's perspective puts a different spin on things, especially because of the telepathy with the other vampires. And it just adds this extra layer to the story that makes it more interesting. I almost wish that Twilight could have been written in dual perspective, where we got certain chapters from Bella's perspective and certain chapters from Edward's. I think that would have made overall for a better story, because there are things with Edward that aren't necessarily, once they're initially introduced, they don't necessarily need to be explained again. But it's one of those things where, you know, if you flip-flop back and forth, you could take some of the monotony out of the storytelling. I bet you now, years later, Meyer wished she would have done that. But I think this is still good and solid so far. I think I'm just gonna like dive in and get some reading done. Because the story's familiar, I'm not feeling the urge to stop very often. We just had the hospital discussion after the car accident, for those of you who are familiar with Twilight, from Edward's perspective and all those kinds of things. And there are some interesting elements to that. It's fleshing out the story, fleshing out the world a little bit. If you had read this without reading the Twilight Saga, I think you'd feel a little lost, just because certain parts obviously haven't been explained yet, but you're kind of dumped in and expected to know. So I do think this does better with the addition of having read the series to have the context that you need first. So hi friends, I'm back. It's been a couple of days. It is now Thursday, but I have finally read some more in Midnight Sun. After the last clip, I kind of took a break and just kind of chilled out, played some video games, and then yesterday was a work day and I got really sucked into my audiobook while I was driving around and stuff in between clients at work, and so I wanted to focus on finishing that last night. So finally got back to some Midnight Sun. I've read another like 40 pages, and I feel like Edward's giving me a little bit of whiplash, I can't lie. I remember some of these feelings from when I first read Twilight, where I felt like dude just couldn't make up his mind. But I've seen him make up his mind now, and now he's just trying to play cautious and make sure that she's been warned how dangerous he is. And it's a little excessive, if you ask me. That is one thing I'm beginning to remember about Meyer's writing, is that it can become repetitive at times. And I feel like this part, but I believe all of this part was in the original manuscript that she published out. And so it was part in her earlier writing. I have a feeling it's going to get better as it goes along, as her writing has changed and evolved over the years. So yes, that's kind of where I'm at in Midnight Sun. I thought I'd give you a quick check-in. And I think I'm going to try to read 3 or 4 before I check in again. Because if I read till I hit chapter 10, let's see. Chapter 10 is almost 200 pages, and I'm at page 116 right now. And that's actually 196, so it'd be 80 pages. So that'd be double what most of my check-ins have been. So I think that's going to be my plan. I'm going to get that far, unless something stands out before then. That's when I will chat with you. So I'm on page 141, right at the end of chapter 6. And there is a line that is beyond creepy to me, and I'm just going to read it to you guys. It says, "I curled my hand around the key I'd just picked from her jacket pocket and inhaled her scent deeply as I drove." Like, it's just such a, like, stalker kind of move and kind of line that it's like, wow, she really went there. And I can admire Stephanie Meyer for going that far with it. At the same time, it's like beyond creepy to be reading in a YA novel. I mean, it's one thing if this were like an adult romantic suspense. I think it would be a lot easier for me to be like, oh, he's got serial killer behaviors here. Clearly he's gonna be a big problem later. But it's one of those things where, wow. Just wow. And yeah, so I had to turn on the camera and talk about that a little bit just because I had to. Sorry, more thoughts here. I'm on page 187 now, and Bella and Edward are at the restaurant in Port Angeles after the attack on Bella. And there's this little paragraph, and I have to mention it. "Suddenly, as she ate, a strange comparison entered my head. For just a second, I saw Persephone, pomegranate in hand, dooming herself to the underworld." And being a Hades and Persephone, like, fan, I take insult to that, like, little moment there. Persephone did not doom herself. She made a choice for herself. And I hate that the mythology and the lore around Hades and Persephone is so, like, convoluted between all the different stories. Because Persephone was amazing in her own right and had plenty of power. She did not need any of Hades' power to be the amazing goddess that she was. And, you know, she had the power to make Hades fall to his knees in love with her. And that gave her power. She did not doom herself to living in the underworld with him. And anyways, that's my little Hades and Persephone rant here, because that explains the pomegranate on the cover. Obviously, the Hades and Persephone reference there. But it's done incorrectly, in my opinion, on this moment. So, yeah. Anyways, I can't lie. I'm finding this a little frustrating to read this time. Being in Edward's head, like, we're getting more of the creepy factor than we got in the initial series. Yes, Edward's perspective isn't quite as annoying to read as Bella's. I'll give Meyer that. But the creep factor is amped up. So it definitely turned this whole series much darker, which I personally am okay with. But it's one of those things where it's altering the expectations that my mind has always kind of had about the series. And like I say, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's clarifying for her. So now I can definitely go out there and say, if you're going to read Twilight, you have to expect it to be dark and have a bunch of problems. Not just with the poorly researched Native American representation within the series. We're talking about all of it. Edward's a vampire. He's not going to act like a regular human. And a lot of people expect him to act like a human. And he tries to be human. He tries to breathe using the lungs that he has, even though he doesn't need to. And all of those kinds of things. It's just really interesting to me how people expect a vampire to behave like a human. Unless they're trying to get something that they want. And yeah, anyways, that's just kind of my thoughts. I'm close to where I was planning on checking in anyway. That's why I just decided to give a bigger check-in. And then, again, I'm kind of just gonna go slowly with this. I don't want to rush it and force myself. So it'll be a while probably before you guys see this. We're currently on August 6th. I got it on the 4th. And, we've got some time. I'm not even quite 200 pages in. Hello, we are on to the next day. So I'm at page 219, chapter 11. I just finished up the chapter with the drive home from Port Angeles with Bella and Edward and their conversation and how all of that goes and everything. And after he drops Bella off, there's this point where he has a conversation with Alice about the situation and what Alice knows and things. And then we have a conversation with Carlisle, Edward telling Carlisle that he wants to take care of the serial killer up in Port Angeles because he doesn't want anybody else to get hurt like Bella, in Bella's place or whatever. And Carlisle's reaction to all of that, like his inner monologue, like Papa Bear, I love him. I really enjoy Carlisle. He really genuinely cares about the people that he's made his found family. And it just makes me admire his character and gives me a little more insight into him. I mean, I always suspected this, and we get glimpses of it later, but to know that it was so present early on. And there was a little part here where he's like battling with himself in his head. He's like, I didn't foresee that she would be so good for him. That's unexpected. Perhaps this was somehow meant to be. Perhaps it serves a higher purpose only. He pictured Bella with snow-cold skin and blood-red eyes, and then flinched away from the image. Yes, indeed, only. Because how could there be any good in destroying something so pure and lovely? I glowered into the night, all the joy from the evening destroyed. Edward deserves happiness. He's owed it. The fierceness of Carlisle's thoughts surprised me. There must be a way. And I just really appreciate the parents that Esme and Carlisle are to Edward and the other Cullen. It's one of those things where often in young adult fiction, we don't have present parents. I mean, Charlie Swan, he was pretty present for Bella in the original story, which I always appreciated. But he was still absentee enough, I guess you could say. And with this, I truly am just appreciating that even though, you know, all of the Cullens have been alive for hundreds of years, it's one of those things where they're still present as like a parent figure, a mentor. And, you know, she didn't have to do that. And I really appreciate that she did. I know a lot of people, I'm starting to see reviews popping up because, you know, we're on Friday. The book's been out for 3 days. And some people haven't finished it. Some people are just trashing on it the whole way through. And I know that my reading experience is being fueled by nostalgia, and I'm not going to shy away from that. But I do think now that we're past the part that she had originally written, which ended, as far as I could tell, around page 150 in the novel. Maybe a tad later, but not a lot. But it was about that point where the original manuscript that got leaked was done. And so now this is newer writing, and I'm enjoying it a bit more. She did make another reference to the Persephone and Hades tale. So we've seen 2 of those now, and I'm sure that will be a recurring theme throughout. And I don't agree with that particular choice, just because I'm a lover of the Hades and Persephone myth. And I guess in a way, Bella has her own strength and is making her choices, so she is a little more like Persephone. But I don't appreciate Edward's take on it, I guess, is where I'm coming from, because that doesn't feel genuine to me. All right, so time has passed, obviously, since we last chatted. I went and did my errands. I ate my lunch. I spilled on myself and ended up, you know, changing my shirt and all the like. So I'm now a little over 300 pages into this. We're about to get to the point where he sparkles for Bella. And the lead up has all been nice. I really like the dynamic with Alice a lot. That's really been kind of the driving force for this novel for me, is all of the interaction with the Cullens. We get to see how vain Rosalie is being through the whole thing. We get to see Alice just wanting to be friends with Bella. We see Jasper and his struggles. We see Emmett just being chill and kind of going with the flow. And we see Edward, you know, he does this really sweet thing where he helps to pay Angela back by helping set her up on a date with Ben and all those kinds of things. And it's just fun. Like, obviously, this isn't going to be the best piece of literature I've ever read. I don't expect it to be. So, yeah, it's a good time. There's a good chance I'll keep going. I'm actually really kind of enjoying the momentum for this. I'm not sure how much more I will today. I'm also really enjoying my leopard novel, so I think I'm going to go back to that for a while. And yeah, it's just enjoyable to me. And there are going to be a lot of haters out there, and I can hear it all from a mile away. But man, I'm having a good time. So yes, hi. Hello. It's been some time since we've chatted. I think a couple of days, actually. I don't remember reading anything yesterday. Maybe I did. I don't remember. But I'm on chapter 18. I just finished all of the Meadow sequence that went across a couple chapters. And I enjoyed that even more from his perspective. I loved seeing what was actually going on within his mind. It made it much more enjoyable for me to read, rather than from like Bella's perspective, where she's just confused and doesn't understand, and it's just like, I'm confused. What did I do wrong? We're getting the side of, oh crap, I'm gonna kill her. What am I gonna do? And it was much more interesting to read for me, and I really enjoyed that. And reading all of this, and every time a Hades and Persephone reference comes up, one, I'm a little mad because I like Hades and Persephone lore, and I feel like
the way it's talked about from Edward's perspective is just kind of poo-pooing over the whole thing. And I'm just like, no, that's not what we're doing here. But anyways, it just makes me crave reading one. So if you have good Hades and Persephone recommendations, please leave them down below. I'm always looking for new ones. So yeah, it's actually pretty late. So I think I'm going to call it for tonight. And I think I'm going to try to plug through and finish this tomorrow. Like, I think I can do it. I've got just one little errand to run in the morning. And then I should be able, I just have to go to the grocery store because we were out of some things today. But other than that, I should just be able to read tomorrow. I don't have a lot going on, so that's going to be my plan so that you guys can get this vlog. I feel like I've shared a lot, but I don't want to share everything. So I'm not even sure if I'll check in again until I'm finished. We'll see if I feel like I need to check in again. If I get like overly emotional at a point, I'll probably turn on the camera. But other than that, like, I can just say I'm solidly enjoying this more than Twilight. I can honestly say that. It's not perfect, of course. You know, Edward's a vampire. He's not going to act like a human man. He's still a creepy stalker. We're not denying that Edward's a creepy stalker. But it's one of those things that in a dark paranormal fantasy, this would all be normal behavior. So I think people just categorize it wrong. And so they expect something different. I mean, the racist content, that's a different matter. And I do think, so far at least, she's not gone down a super bad road in that regard. In this book, being from Edward's perspective, and their contact is minimal, especially in this first book, we're not running into all the super bad racist stuff. So that's nice, at least. All right, so I am here to wrap up this reading vlog for you guys. So my experience reading Midnight Sun was really just a really fun, nostalgic time. Is this book perfect? No. Does it feed my nostalgic heart? Yes. What it comes down to is if you care enough to read Edward's perspective. If I'm ever going to revisit Twilight, I'm always going to revisit it via Midnight Sun from now on, because this is actually the version that I prefer of the two, for a myriad of reasons that I've kind of mentioned throughout this. Basically, I just found Edward less obnoxious to read from. And I really loved all of the Cullen dynamics that we got. Getting to see Esme and Carlisle truly as parents, and Edward being in their head and fully understanding the ups and downs of being a parent through his perspective was brilliant. I really love Emmett's head so much. I mean, it's basically described that Emmett's just himself. Anything he would think, he would honestly say out loud. And you get a better understanding of Rosalie through Edward's head as well. Alice is just the amazing Alice she always is. A lot of the scenes were really fun from his perspective. Like watching the baseball game with all the Cullens telepathically communicating and all those kinds of things was really, really fun. And I also think that the Meadow made a lot more sense from Edward's perspective than it did from Bella's. Honestly, I think if Stephanie Meyer had thought it through, she would have done it at least dual POV, so you get glimpses of both characters throughout, and I think that would have made the best novel for me. Because there are times where it's like, okay, you know, would have liked to see Bella's side of this again, but not very often. I honestly preferred Edward's perspective, especially a lot of the key moments, like when they first met. I would have loved to see a flash back and forth of what they were thinking during that. Having those like lined up together would have been fantastic. And I honestly don't think Meyer's going to write any more in the series. I mean, I honestly would continue to love this if she decided to continue to write them all from Edward's perspective, and then I would just change out my series. All my Twilight books would be the ones from Edward's perspective because I find them much more interesting. Especially something like New Moon. It would be really interesting to get everything that was going on with Edward for that. Like, that just would have been thoroughly entertaining for me. But anyway, I really just found this to be a good time. I'm glad Meyer came back and wrote it for her fans. And, you know, we all just... I really enjoyed this. I'm still mulling over what I'm going to actually rate it. But it's going to be a 4 or like a 5. Purely for nostalgia reasons more than anything else. I know there's going to be a lot of people out there just hating on this book. But you know what? I had a lot of fun reading it. And I read mostly for entertainment, not so much critically. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this reaction vlog. It's probably a little different than a lot of people's out there. I went in very skeptically to this book, but I ended up really enjoying myself. I didn't put the bar too high. Jen from over at the Book Refuge, she and I pretty much had a similar experience. She read it a lot faster than I did, but I purposely slowed down my reading pace on this one, and it was just a good time. What more can you ask for than a good time, right? All right, well, that is everything, my friends. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.